where business ideas and passions turn into profit. Napkin ideas are no longer tucked away in drawers, and women around the globe are turning their hobbies into million-dollar businesses. Welcome to Million Dollar Hobbies. Here's your host, world-renowned jewelry designer and Shop HQ celebrity, Victoria Wieck.
Welcome to another episode of the Million Dollar Hobbies podcast. If you've always wanted to know, we all sort of dream of becoming an author, and most of us don't write books. And I've always wanted to do that. And I actually did end up writing, which is a lot of work. And as far as if I thought that was a lot of work, actually marketing the book and getting other people to read your book is even bigger issue. So if you've ever dreamt about that, or even if you haven't, many of you know, I believe that every business owner should write their own books because that's the easiest way to impact your circle of, people that you serve, as well as increase your expert authority. So today we're in for such a treat because I believe I have the very best person when it comes to marketing your book on the scene today, and he happens to be somebody who's actually helped me with my book. It's not launched yet, but he's helped me a lot, and he's going to help me through the whole process. His name is Mario Fachini. He's a best-selling author himself, and he's also the host of a podcast that actually helps you create your personal branding, elevate and amplify your voice, with his publishing expertise as well. So without further ado, I want to introduce you to my friend Mario. Welcome to the show, Mario.
Victoria, it's a great day to be here. I can't wait to share with your audience.
Yeah, so as I just explained a little bit ago, I was asked to write my story, my journey, and a lot of my fans wanted to know how she did it, and they want to read my books. But writing a book is kind of scary. If you think about it, it's a scary thing. How long does it take? And if I write a book, is anyone going to read it? What do I write? Where do I start? So these are all these questions that people have. And I know that you have been serving, many people. You've impacted many lives with your clients, but also their clients as well. So for those people who are wondering, is it worth all that time? What would you say?
Absolutely it is. Because when you have your expertise, we all have it, regardless of what it is. Most people have years and years of expertise, and they do a bunch of different appointments. They go to different meetings. They go all this manual stuff that's time intensive. And then when someone asks them a question, what do you do? They get lit up. Oh my gosh, I get to explain what I do to everyone. And no one bats an eyelash at that point. They'll go on for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe an hour. Oh my gosh, here's what I do. And they tell their whole life story. But it's very time intensive. And if you want to talk to 10 people, if you want to get 100 leads, if you want to get 1,000 or 10,000, you have to now do that exact process 100 times, 1,000 times. And this is where people go, well, I don't do that. I have my team do it. Well, the thing is, now you have a watered down version of whatever you're trying to get them to say. Unless you can and clone yourself, unless you duplicate yourself, and even if you do it in the wrong voice, it's not you coming through. It's some variation of what you're trying to say. There's nothing better than to be able to have your expertise packaged up professionally in a book and just hand it to them. Now you can print 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 copies, and you don't need to be the one there taking an hour of your time just to explain yourself to someone. Plus you have the positioning, and it acts as a sales mechanism because by the time they read your book, they go through all this stuff. Now, where do you think they are on? I call it the road to profits. If you just meet someone today, it's going to take some time to get to know them before you want to buy from them.
Yeah. So I know that you yourself have written a best-selling book on that. And now you have an upcoming book about, so you have a book about publishing. So you're publishing a book about publishing. I know it's kind of a tongue twister. Okay. But what was it like for you to write your first book, and why did you write your first book?
To serve more people. I failed English 7 times. I'm the last person on earth who was like, I want to be a writer. I want to be a publisher. I want to do all these different things. It scared the crap out of me. But I knew all the people I could help. And once I thought about it through that lens, I was like, this is a no-brainer, because that was always my goal.
Yeah. So still, like, how do you go from failing English 7 times? But I understand that you had this desire to help a lot of people. But how do you go from failing English 7 times to actually writing a book, which then became a bestseller? So what was what are the types of things that you had to kind of answer yourself and overcome to start writing? And then when you start writing, how do you know what to write?
For me, it was more coming and getting past my own mindset.
Okay.
Because at the end of the day, I had my expertise. We could talk for hours. I was already speaking on it. I was already doing trainings. I had already helped hundreds of people. So in my mind, I have this mountain to climb of, I'm not, what's his name? Hemingway. You know, I don't have years and years of writing experience, but that doesn't matter. I had my expertise, but in my mind, it was, I'm not qualified because of A, when the reality is it has nothing to do with that. It has to do with B, my area of expertise. And when I reframe that to say, this is a no-brainer, I just started thinking about the people I helped, the people I wanted to help, and the stuff I've always said. And my first book is Video Marketing for Business Owners. So I just thought about who I helped, how I was helping them. And what I love doing with people now is the process. How do you create the chapters?
Right.
Well, there's people that I kind of like having fun with because they're nowhere near as bad off as I was, but there's still that hesitation of like you're a jewelry expert. You have 25 years, sold half a billion in jewelry, all this stuff. But if you say, well, and I know you're a good writer, but if, for example, you said, I'm not sure what to write, I'd say, okay, well, don't worry about what to write, but talk to me about jewelry. You know, how do you start? How do you pick out the design? How do you do this? How do you pick out the cut, color, clarity, and carat? You know, what are these things you're thinking about? And within 5 minutes, I'm pretty confident I could get your wheels turning and get you so excited talking about it. It just flows out of you. When you can capture that, your essence and your expertise, that's all you really need to do. Truthfully. Now, yeah, you need the cover, you need the title, you need the subtitle and all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, we've gotten really good at capturing entrepreneurs' expertise, and then we can take care of the rest. Once we have that, it's a done deal.
You know, so what I heard you say, if I interpreted it correctly, is that the fact that you failed English 7 times, and, you know, and I asked that question repeatedly for a reason, because many of us think that we're not great writers. Many of us think that writing is a separate expertise that's separate from, you know, we think about ourselves as jewelry designers, as an engineer, or as a health expert, but we don't think of ourselves as good enough writers to actually write, even if you wanted to write the book, right? So I think that what you were saying is that with your first book, what you were trying to do is just convey information. It wasn't about flowery writing, beautiful language writing. It really has to do with, you know, sharing valuable information, adding value to other people and to their businesses.
That's exactly it.
So if you're going to do that, then, so, you know, I took a look at your book that hasn't been released yet. And what really struck me in the 7 Ps, so you're going to have to go through the 7 Ps, because I can't remember all of it. You know, I'm a little bit, like a couple of years older than you, probably. The first P was the purpose. So I think I really love that, because I think that a lot of us, when you start writing, you forget why you're writing. You know, you have all this, but you forget why you're writing. You know, the purpose to me is really important, because when you start with that, then the rest of that stuff kind of flows. your purpose isn't like, I want to be a New York Times bestseller, so it's going to be an ego booster. I want to be, basically the purpose of your book in your first and the second book is to help your audience. And if you're going to do that, then the book will be rich with that purpose, like all the things that kind of fulfill that purpose. Wouldn't you say that's true?
Absolutely. And some people have, I harp on this a lot because I'm so adamant, because so many people and other publishers, they'll say, we can get you a book. We can get you a book on Amazon. It's frankly not that hard nowadays.
No.
And they focus on the cover. They focus on the, the ISBN. They focus on just what format it is. Should I do Kindle or paperback? And it's like, these are questions you should ask, but they're not really the right questions coming out of the gate. So I take a different approach and always have. And the book starts with your mentality, the purpose. Who are you looking to serve? Because if you're just doing this for, there's a lot of vanity publishing out there, and whatever, people can do whatever they want. I'm going to behave, but
it's a family show.
I've always wanted to help people, and that's who I attract. And that's who the people who apply for my author program and the concierge level, if I get the littlest bit of sense that they don't actually want to serve people, it's definitely not a good fit. And I've turned down a lot of people. So if you don't have your vision and your purpose clearly identified, what's the point of doing the rest? Because if you're just looking for something to hand out to someone, you don't need to do a professional book. You can do a lead magnet, is the marketing term, to just create a 2-3 page, maybe a digital PDF, and it can look nice, where you put it on your website and people download it and they give you an email opt-in. That's a totally different purpose, and it's infinitely easier to do. When you identify the purpose and you say, you know what, I've been doing this for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever the case is, maybe longer. I'm serving 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 people, and I want to now serve 10,000, 100,000, a million plus, maybe 10 million. It gives you a different frame of doing this all through. And to me, it's the commitment level. How much do you really want to invest in this? Because just like cars, houses, businesses, everything, there's bad ones and there's good ones. Getting it done is not really rocket science, especially with me and my team. But I always make sure we're in alignment, so that way we know, hey, you want to do this in a big way to serve more people. All we need to do, just answer some questions. Tell me about your business. What about this? What about this? What about this? And we go through a process of pulling that out of people and extracting the expertise. And now it's an actual thing that's you can use. And it's a business asset. The book we're referring to for the video publishing, video marketing for business owners, it was 10 years ago. I still get royalties from that. I still am able to give it to people. I'm still able to help them with video marketing. We're on video now, and I'm implementing some of this stuff in this moment that I've been teaching for 15, nearly 20 years now. So when I was able, like I said, when I was able to wrap my head around that, I go, yeah, I want to help more people. I want to do it in a bigger way and make it more easier and profitable. See, there we go with the best written, more easier and profitable, more easier. I'm sure that's proper. Yeah. But you know what? The book says best selling, not best written.
Okay. So I just pulled up the chapter headings here. So I wasn't like playing with my phone, but it's easier to see it here. So your first chapter was purpose, and I love that. And I'm just going to go through like the 7 really quickly here. Positioning, actually he uses the word position, plan, publish, publicity, profit, and philanthropy. So of all the 7 pieces, and it's really simple. So for those of you who are thinking about writing a book, or maybe you haven't thought about it, but you're seriously now thinking about this as a result of this show. The framework is really simple. You got the 7, piece, and I think these are really, really well thought out. And I know this because I have written a book myself, and it's very easy to get involved in the idea that you want to do a best-selling, and there, the whole world is full of people. I ran into a lot of people, Mario, that guaranteed me Amazon bestseller status. Okay. And then I found out that in some categories, depending on how you categorize your thing, you may have to just sell 20 books to get to the best-selling category for the day.
You might only need to sell 8 to 12, to be honest with you.
Exactly. And so if the purpose of you writing a book is more ego driven, or you want to do, even if you're going to be marketing yourself and you want to say, I want to be able to say it's a best-selling book, for example, do you really then, and that was your purpose, do you really then enrich it with content that might serve, a few thousand people, but it should, you know what I mean? Like, I think the purpose of your writing book, that's why I said that purpose, I think, was very important. And then the second thing is positioning your book. That's also really important, because there are so many books out there. There are literally millions of books. There, a typical Barnes and Noble store, you may not know this, a typical Barnes and Noble superstore, before they have the regular stores and they have the superstores that have, the Starbucks and everything in there. You may not realize this, but do you know that they have 100,000 titles in every Barnes and Noble superstore? So if you think about that, that's a lot of books. And so you want to be able to position that book in the minds of the people that you serve. And then the other thing that I think is really important is planning. You wouldn't plan on going on a trip to Europe for 3 weeks without, in my family, I'd plan that a year ahead. You wouldn't plan on having a dinner party for 12 people. You wouldn't just call people. You would plan. You'd figure out what day, what are you going to serve, who's going to be there, that kind of thing. So a book launch is something that needs to be planned out ahead of time. You don't write a book and go, now I have the book, an agent or whoever, come take a look at my book. I mean, I've gone through this whole process, and I can tell you that, even if you're going to go through like a whole publishing route, they always want to know what your marketing plan is before they'll even take a look, they'll entertain talking to you at all. So
absolutely. And so many of them, so many people think everything's wrapped up in the book. And I've said for years, the book is really just the beginning. And
Right.
The book is not even the beginning. The beginning is telling people about it. So I'm glad you brought that up, because the 7 Ps are purpose, position, plan, publish, publicity, profit, and philanthropy. And purpose, like we talked about, you need to know why you're doing it. If you just want to do something quick and dirty and just have it out there for a lead opt-in, so be it. But I know other publishers, but they never have printed a book. The whole benefit of doing it proper is to be able to hand it to someone.
Yeah.
And actually, the authority that comes with that. Everyone has digital stuff. The positioning. One of my other rules is you need to be at a certain level already. I'm not going to take someone who's doing stuff wrong, who has 2 testimonials, they're brand new. Like, good for you for getting those 2, but get 5 more, get 10 more, do it for a little bit. So there's people who say, we're going to position you, do a book with me and I'll make you the expert. Well,
No.
doing a book won't make you the expert. It just means you have a book. So
Right.
I work with people who are already at a certain level of success and already experts, and help them market and amplify that, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
The plan, like you said, when you're going on a trip or somewhere, you got to plan this out. That's why publish is actually number 4, because unless you're doing these other ones, publishing it, I joke all the time, if you can do an email attachment, there's about 30 or 40 buttons on Amazon, but you're literally just uploading a file, and then it goes through the spending process. You wait 24 to 72 hours, voila, you're published. That's not publishing, that's uploading a document.
Right.
And like you talked about, the publicity and obviously the profit, you need to market it from day one. The first thing I tell everyone, that whether they go through our guided training where we're working with them, or the concierge level where we just do it for them, they're like, what do I need to do? How many do I need to order? Yada, yada. I go, you need to announce to everyone right now, today, as soon as you can, you're publishing a book. Yeah. Because you can't be doing that the day before. You have to do it from the time you commit to it, and then kind of fill in the gaps.
Now, I want to go back up a little bit about about this whole process. And I think, and it's going to put everything in context for all of you who are listening here, that, the first thing, even before you get to someone like Mario, or before you write anything, is to understand that if you're a small business, and many of you who are listening to the show are small businesses, and Mario, you do a lot of small to medium-sized CEOs who are writing their books about their journey or their company or their product. Now, I want to tell you that writing your story, writing why you do what you do, the purpose of your company, the genesis of what your products are, how they became born, and what it does, all of that may be the most important asset that you have, meaning that your journey, if you're a small company, you can't be competing with the IBMs, the Coca-Colas, all those big companies. So having that niche and having your story told is actually one of the best assets that you have. So if you think, I don't know, my story is not that interesting. And I say this to you because having done, a lot of people have told me that my journey, going from a penniless immigrant to creating, well over $500 million worth of business, is extraordinary. I never believed that. And as you know, I never believed that I'm an extraordinary person. I never believed that my story was that extraordinary. I never believed that the struggles I went through are any more unique than any other immigrant coming here. I don't, until you get your head wrapped around, and so what happened to me at the end was during COVID, I thought, okay, maybe I should write the book because everybody's hurting, and information that I share, if it helps one person, just one person, that would be, it'll be worth it to me. And if I don't tell my story, I'm not making it convenient for people to actually help themselves. So, many of you who are sitting there thinking, what, I don't know if it's something I might want to do later on. Let me tell you, if you truly have expertise in something that you are passionate about, then you almost owe it to your potential audience to write that book. What do you think?
I agree 100%. And one of the things that you could say it's a little controversial, but I've done coaching in addition to speaking for so long that when I can tell, when I'm reading people and I can tell there's just something more going on. I've said this to many of my authors and they're like, what about this? And there's people who want to do a book. It's called vanity publishing. They want to do it. Just look at me. Like you said, it's ego driven. On the flip side of that, there's people who have the biggest hearts. They do have expertise, but they're so timid. It's also ego driven. And I've told them, we get to inevitably at some point in the process, I have to say, why are you being so selfish? And you would think that it was like the worst thing to them. They're like, what do you mean? I go, every problem you're telling me you're having right now that you think you do, and it's all in your head, right? It's all based on you care so much about what other people are thinking. You have this opportunity to help thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands and more people, and you're focused on the handful that you're currently talking to. Step away from it. Realize you can now spread your message faster and further. They're like, wow, I never thought about that. I go, what if you get sick? What if you're not here? What about that? And I don't wish that on anyone, but even the legacy piece, what do you do after you're gone? I'm so glad I have my show, my books, everything. There's probably no one that if you watched or listened or read a certain amount without ever meeting me, they could tell who I am. And I'm very thankful for that because so many people go to their grave with their song inside of them. And I think that's the real travesty, regardless of what business you're in.
Yeah. And, on that note, I want to say that I've kind of sort of modeled my book based on a story that somebody told me about his book. And what happened was, this guy was incredibly passionate about what he does for a living. And, he's a jeweler. He did, a lot of things. He got his little briefcase, did all the calls. This guy's about now in his late 80s. But, he did all the calls, knocked on the doors, came up with worked with the tools. He did all this stuff. His kids basically decided that the last thing they wanted to do was get into the business, their business. They're all educated. They're like doctors, lawyers, and dentists. And, but he said, what if, like you said, what if I die tomorrow? Like, what would happen to my business? So he was hoping that, at least one of those kids would want to follow in his footsteps. And if they ever wanted to follow his footsteps, what would he teach them? Because they weren't listening to him, right? So he wrote like a little memo to his kids, anything and everything that he felt that they needed to learn if anybody ever wanted to come into. It's almost like a manual. He wrote it, and then eventually he published it, and it became actually a really good seller. So, and then one of his kids actually did inherit the business. He's very happy. So I thought, so this is, again, like what you were saying too, is when you have true expertise that, you have it inside you. And this guy's business is about a $40 million business. It's not a small business anymore. And, even though the kid that took it over was a dentist, it was better, money-wise, it was actually better to do this business than his thing. But I think you almost owe it to anybody and everybody around your circle to write, to share. If you're privileged enough to actually have discovered something or have come up with a framework that actually works for a lot of people, to share that information. And as long as you're going to share that information, you then have the duty to write the best book you can, and then to reach out to as many people as you can. So that's where, so I wrote, as you know, my stories, I had to be really talked into to write the book, because I don't actually like to talk about myself. I don't like to, I'm a pretty humble person. I don't want people to think, I'm not a braggadocious person. So, and I truly didn't believe like whatever I did was extraordinary. And then I realized you don't have to be an extraordinary person to have an amazing story. And everybody's story is valuable. Everybody has a story, and that story needs to be told and preserved because you could serve other people, because we all have unique gifts that we come to this earth with. So when I started to write my book, I was thinking like, how do I market the book? And when I went into looking for marketing the book, that's when I went into some of the, I hate to say these words because some of the most fraudulent or misleading marketing tactics. The book marketing business is a huge business, and there are a lot of people that are guaranteed everything in the world. And thank God I have some common sense, because what I know about life is there are no guarantees in life. So,
Amen to that.
There are no guarantees in life. So when people start to guarantee things, I get a little, little gun shy about like, what do they know that I don't know? Do they actually really have expertise? And how much is that guarantee actually worth? Right? Because, anything worthwhile, you need to do it well, and it takes some pain. So the more I dug into that, the more I was careful. So that's when I first ran into you, is with my book. And all of the advice that you had given me is just really incredibly valuable. And you were also brutally honest about, like what you will do, what you won't do, and what's going to work and what's not going to work. And ultimately, it saves time for people. And if you're going to write the book, first of all, I encourage everyone to write your story, because your story is worthwhile telling. It's just not only that, you want to tell your story, but you want to say it, you want to tell it in a way that resonates with your target audience. And when you do that, that becomes your big asset. It becomes your sort of like a calling card. Everybody wants to, it's right now, it's a marketing sort of belief system that most people in marketing would agree with. And that is, people have to like you, they have to trust you, and that they have to respect you before they'll buy anything from you. And when you write the book, you have so many opportunities there to build that trust and audience. Look, if you're writing a book and you're writing, you're writing certain expertise and facts, that's evergreen. You have to worry about things like, can I be sued for this? Is this information truly true? Like, you go through all of that stuff. So basically, when you write your story, you can write an interesting story, something that's memorable, that gains respect, and that will elevate and amplify your voice. You have to do that only one time, and you get to say it 1,000,000 times. If you sell 1,000,000 copies, you're going to be able to say that exact thing 1,000,000 times. It becomes your best-selling asset. And not only that, I think it also crystallizes your branding a little bit. And more than anything, though, Mario, what I love about the 7 Ps that you've given, at least the first 3 or 4 Ps, is that it makes you, the author, think about your business too. Because when you have to actually write it, it makes you really think about, well, why am I not doing this? Or I should have been doing this. Or could say, geez, I didn't realize this was the best. This is why people come to my, my store, or this is why people come to my business. It makes you think and makes you have a fresh look on your business as well, even though you've been doing it. That's what happened to me. I had to when I wrote my book, I realized I saw a lot of benefits that people could get from me that I had not thought about before. That wasn't even in the book in the first place. And then I'm like, when people started asking me, oh my God, you should have a chapter on negotiating. And I'm like, really? So it makes you think about that. So
I'm glad you bring that up, Victoria, because the other thing that it does, I love authors, because if you actually have a book that is published that you took the time to do right, it tells me you're mentally at a different level.
Right.
And that's what, the root word of authority is author.
Right.
There's people who think about doing it, or might do a LinkedIn post or a Facebook thing, or let's just say social media thing. And that's easy because there's no priority given to it. There's no elegance given to it necessarily. But when you have to open yourself up and be vulnerable enough to say, I'm putting this out to the world, I can't rebuke it. I can't do a rebuttal real time, like how we're having a conversation. It's one reason a lot of people stay with the one-on-one and never get to a higher level, because you can very easily go, well, I didn't mean it like that. What I really meant was, you can clarify yourself 17 different times in that conversation and still have it end up well. When you're going, hey, here's me, here's the book. Mm-hmm. You can look through it. You can read it. I might never get a chance to talk to you, and I have to do the same persuasion, selling, sharing, and making it cohesive. It freaks most people out.
It does. And
so if you do it and you do it well, your confidence level just goes through the roof. I booked a dozen or 2 speaking engagements before the book was even launched, just from saying I'm doing the book. Showed some people the first one like a decade ago. And I was like, I was bittersweet, because I go, this thing isn't even out yet, and it's already, my life's better because of it. Moreover, I was also a little irritated because it's what I had been speaking on for 6, 7, 8 years at that point. And no one asked me to come speak or do anything. And the only thing, it was the same info, but now I have a book. Right. Now I'm this author. Now I'm this guy. And I went from the one attending the events to the one speaking at them. And it was surreal when I was speaking next to the same people I looked up to, not just a couple of years ago. And it gave me the confidence to go, this is really you. Right. You can do it. Forget the past. Don't worry about that, no matter where you're at. But it just changes everything. It's more of an internal process that, like I said, I'm not going to make jokes about covers and ISBNs, and because you do need it and stuff, but that's not what the publishing is. That's not how I do it. That's not what a book is. A book is an extension of you. And if you're a good person, you'll love it. And if you're not, you're probably going to back away from it.
Yeah. So I'm really glad that, we went through this whole, the publishing system, because for me, I mean, I personally know a lot of people that should write a book that haven't done it because of this whole maze of, information jungle when it comes to the publishing side of it.
Absolutely.
It is a jungle. So I'm glad that you have you can help people clarify, because those 7 simple steps, I mean, they're very simple steps. The other thing that I love too about, I think it's the last one in your in your 7 pieces,
philanthropy
is, and I like that because to me, writing a book is already philanthropic, because I'll tell you why I believe this. Because number one, the most important thing you can give anybody, most important gift you can give anybody, is your knowledge and your time. Okay. So for myself, I have a TV show, and I can, on TV, it's a known fact that we are judged by, we have to perform on $1 per minute. So, and it's several $1,000s a minute. So I could easily make money going on TV. And if I wanted to make money, and that was the reason why the purpose was to make more money, publishing books, it'd be stupid for me to write a book that, takes you a year to write and publish. Okay. So, it's not a good ROI on your time or your expertise. So by gifting your expertise and the amount of time it took to write the book, comb through every, I's and T's and, whatever, and verifying all the information you're giving. Like if I'm quoting any stats, you have to, cite sources, the data publication, all that took me like months for me to do all that. So that's really, it's already philanthropic to actually share your knowledge, if you're selling your books for, $9 or $10 a piece at a time. But then after that,
20 or 30. Yeah.
But after that, if you are successful, your knowledge is a gift to somebody else. And that's to me is also really important. And then lastly, with my book, if my book is actually be tied to different charities, so the proceeds will actually, not all of it, but a lot of it is going to go to the charities that I support. So it allows you to do all these things. It allows you to be a better person because you're impacting other people. And then when you see how those lives are changed, and if a lot of people, you give them 2, 3, 4 pieces of information, they take it, and they will come up with 6 other things that you didn't know, right? So this is truly a sharing, it's a blessing to be helped, and it's also a blessing to help other people. So I feel like that if you do it right, and you're doing for the right purpose, and you plan it thoroughly, and you do all the right things, I mean, I can't think of anything better that you could do for your business or for yourself than authoring a book. What would you say to that?
I would say 100%. And I get torn with that because obviously we both have successful shows and businesses, and there's stuff we can do. And admittedly, my first book is video marketing for business owners. So the question I get now is, well, I want to start a podcast. I want to do a book. I want to do a show. I want to do video. I want to do this. It's like there's so much out there you can do now.
Right.
That everyone wants to do it, because if you're ambitious, why wouldn't you? I mean, straight up. But when you look at the time, energy, and investment, I can make a strong case, because to your point, if you're making thousands of dollars a minute and you're making 6, 7, 8 figures a year, what's your time worth? Right. So to take a year or two to extrapolate this out, that's why I never put my program to do it that way. We take you through much quicker because it's a business, because I want that book in people's hands so you can help those people. Yeah. I mean, think about that extra year and a half, 2 years. What kind of reach can you gain in that time? So to the point of the podcasting, video, and all the other stuff, the podcasting, unless you just do it as like a season 1 of a TV show, 12, 16, 24 episodes, and you're done, which wouldn't have any longevity, but it might be a really good show, you have to keep doing it. So podcast gets a knockdown. And I have a great show, EA interviews. So it's a little surreal to say, but even over the podcasting, once you're done with the book, you can just hit print thousands of times. Once it's done, you're done. Video, you also have to keep doing, even though they're all great, and you should do all 3.
I should mention that this is coming from somebody who has a very successful podcast. The podcasting industry has something like a 90 or 95% failure rate within the first 2 years. So Mario actually has a podcast called EA Interviews. So it stands for Expert Authority Interviews. And his podcast is top 100 business or entrepreneurship podcasts. So, I mean, that's amazing. The other thing I want to talk to our audience about too is your first book was video marketing. That had to have been so far ahead of its time, because right now video marketing is the craze out there. And, people are still just discovering. There are mastermind classes everywhere about how to use video to, to sort of influence people, video influencing is just coming into play. And yet you've written a book and published it and become a best-selling author, all of this stuff with your first book already. So, I mean, I just think that can you imagine though, if you bought his book when that was published and you actually implemented some of this stuff, you're probably coaching mastermind classes right now on the video marketing part of this, which I think is really valuable. So again, well, thank you so much for coming on this show, Mario. And I don't know, are you accepting pitches? If you're accepting pitches, you could check out his podcast as well. He's got an amazing...
We always are.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So tell us how people get a hold of you.
The best place to learn more is at eapublishingmethodbook.com.
So EA, like expert authority. So EA.
Yes, eapublishingmethodbook.com.
And I will put that in my show notes. And I think his podcast is called EA Interviews. It's on YouTube. And many of you may be listening to this just on audio, but check out his YouTube videos, because let me tell you something, his video setup is kind of like CNBC studios. I mean, it's better than any newsroom. It really looks like he's got all this stuff happening. So, he pretty much, kind of visually shows you the quality of his video production and everything else that you can do pretty easily on your own. But thank you so much for coming, and I wish you all the success. And as you know, I purchased a bunch of several copies of your hard copy books, because I want to help do my part to pass that around to people that can impact the world as well. So.
And I appreciate that, Victoria. It was an absolute pleasure, and happy to answer any other questions with your audience. I just want them to realize they need to have their message out there too. And it doesn't help anyone in the world keeping your light hidden.
Right. That's true too. Well, thank you so much. And I always say to all of you, happiness is your choice. So I hope you make great choices this week. And until then, please stay healthy and happy. And I'll see you next week at this time.
You've been listening to Million Dollar Hobbies, where we turn dreams into reality and passion into profit. According to ancient Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Congratulations on taking that first step today. For more information on how Victoria can help you turn your hobby into $1 million and to download Victoria's free ebook on passion-based business ideas, visit milliondollarhobbies.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show on your favorite podcast player.